Good afternoon. Welcome to the International Writer in e-Residence finale with Kateryna Babkina. My name is Caitlin Burgess, and I am the event planner for McMaster Library and today's MC. I want to thank everyone, especially Kateryna and our honored guests, for joining us for today's virtual celebration. Before we get started with our program, I want to draw your attention to the right side of your screen. During today's event, if you have any questions at any time, please feel free to type them into the chat box. At the end of the event, we will have time for Kateryna to answer them. Without further ado, I will turn the spotlight over to Daniel Coleman, Professor of English and Cultural Studies, for our land acknowledgement and to share a little more about the Writer in Residence program here at McMaster.
Thank you, Caitlin. My name is Daniel Coleman, and I have chaired the Writer in Residence Program Committee between McMaster University and the Hamilton Public Library on and off since the program started 24 years ago in 1999. This celebration of Kateryna Babkina's residency at McMaster and the Hamilton Public Library highlights the beauty and the difficulty of our relationships to the land and places where we all live. Now, because this is an online gathering, many of you on screen may be in different places all around the world, as far as I know. So I should explain that acknowledging our different relations to the lands on which we live is a growing practice in Canada and North America. By this opening act, we remind ourselves of the complexity of our relationships to the Indigenous lands and peoples among whom we live. On the one hand, we're so grateful for the beauty and blessing of the places where we have found shelter, food, and peace. On the other hand, here in Hamilton, we know that the superficial sense of peace we have covers over histories of colonialism and ongoing dispossession, of violence against both the land itself and the Indigenous peoples, especially Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe peoples, who have served as guardians of this land for centuries. So this set of reflections feels especially strange because we're meeting virtually today. The blessing of the internet itself is part of the complexity I'm talking about. On the one hand, it provides the platform where we can meet at all. So we're very grateful for that opportunity. Kateryna's current life in exile during the war in Ukraine means that she and her family are now in London, UK, and cannot be with us here physically in Hamilton. And so because of the blessing of the internet, Kateryna has been able to serve as a virtual writer in residence, consulting with emerging writers both here in Ontario, but also anywhere in the world that we're connecting with her about their writing. But this also means that her residency is hosted on the lands of the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe, here at the head of Lake Ontario, without her or some of her writer clients having the chance to meet these guardians of the territory that is covered by the Dish with One Spoon Treaty ceremonial agreement. This is the agreement made between local people, including the Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee Confederacies of Nations, to share in the peace and abundance of this part of the land. And it's because of this ancient agreement that the first Europeans to arrive on the lip of the escarpment that you can still see curving around the end of the beautiful shining lake where we live, that Europeans who first arrived here called these people neutrals, the nation neutre. The Dish was a place of peace and shared abundance. But whether in Ukraine or here in Hamilton, histories of violence have broken the web of peaceful relationships within which we long to live. One of our hopes for the Writer in Residence program is that by seeking out and nurturing the storytellers and poets in our midst, by encouraging them to find the words and stories and poems for the places where we live and which we have come to love, we will find ways to speak the truth of the places where we live. We will find local and global stories of sadness, humor, trauma, anger, celebration, love, and justice that can restore the peace of the lands where we live. Every year, McMaster's Library and Department of English and Cultural Studies, in partnership with the Hamilton Public Library, hosts a Mabel Pugh Taylor Writer in Residence, who hosts office hours to meet with local emerging writers to discuss their work or to visit classes and public events to encourage creative writers in our region. And the list of writers we have hosted over the years is an A list of top Canadian writers. Kateryna's residency brings a world-class author to our residency program this year. So we have had the good fortune to have two writers in residence this year, one who is local and in person, the gifted novelist and nonfiction writer, Amanda Leduc, who has been working in person with the program, and Kateryna Babkina, whose residency has been online. This is not the first time we have had an international writer in residence, nor the first time that we have had a virtual writer in residence. Back in the early 2000s, we hosted Nushin Sulari, Petronilla Cleto, and Shen Sue, all writers associated with PEN Canada's Writer in Exile program that featured writers who needed to live for safety's sake away from their home countries. This year, we are particularly grateful for the McMaster's Provost's Office, to the McMaster Library, and to Hamilton Public Library for coming up with extra funding so that we could create the position that Kateryna has held over the past 6 months. And then last year, because of COVID, or the last couple of years because of COVID, we have had a couple of virtual writers in residence in 2020 and the year 2021. January Rogers, a Mohawk poet and playwright from Six Nations, and Pasha Mala, a novelist who lives right here in Hamilton. And both of them were serving as online residents, which returns us to the themes of land, of the complex relationships we have to the land on which we live, to the blessing of the internet when these relationships are troubled, and the need that we have for poets, playwrights, storytellers of many kinds to help us understand the complexities of our relationships to the people and places that give us identity, home, history, and community. So welcome to this event, and welcome again, Kateryna. We're so excited to see you speak today and to meet some of the writers that you've been working with over the course of this past while.
Thank you so much, Daniel. I would now like to introduce Nancy McPhee, Manager of Adult Program Development at Hamilton Public Library. Nancy, over to you.
Thanks, Caitlin. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here today to thank McMaster University Library, McMaster Humanities, and McMaster Provost for their friendship and partnership in the Mabel Pugh Writer in Residence program, including this e-Writer in Residence. And to thank Kateryna for sharing her skills and stories with Hamilton. As a public librarian, I often think about how books and stories fit into the world and how they create meaning. When we think about books and writing, we are thinking also about how ideas move through space and time, and how our place in the world is affected by what we read, and that informs how we think. Kateryna has been able to add her voice through online workshops, one-on-one coaching, and by sharing her writing. The Writer in Residence program is a unique opportunity to share a writerly voice with an academic and public audience, and this makes it a very special thing. So thank you so much. I think we're passing things over to Vivian Lewis to introduce Kateryna.
Good morning, good afternoon from McMaster University in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. I'm very pleased to welcome you to this special finale event celebrating the work of Kateryna Babkina, our 2022-2023 International Writer in Residence. My name is Vivian Lewis, and I have the great honor of serving as McMaster's University Librarian. And among the many joys that come with my role is the opportunity to support projects that contribute to the enrichment of the arts. The Mabel Pugh Taylor Writer in Residence program has fostered literature and writing across the Hamilton region since 2003. And in recognition of the ongoing war in Ukraine and partnership with McMaster's Provost, the Faculty of Humanities, and Hamilton Public Library, we proudly extended that reach globally with the addition of an international writer in residence. So Kateryna is an accomplished Ukrainian writer currently living in exile. In March of 2022, Kateryna fled her home in Kiev with her young daughter and mother to escape the war. She has since established a temporary home in London, United Kingdom, where she worked remotely during her term as writer in residence. Kateryna is a seasoned poet, a prose writer, a columnist, a screenwriter, a playwright, and she published her first book at just 17 years of age. Kateryna's published works include 4 poetry collections, a novel in short stories, and 2 collections of stories. She is also the author of 4 children's books. Over the course of her writing career, Kateryna's work has been translated to multiple languages and published internationally. Her novel entitled My Grandfather Danced the Best won the 2021 Angelus Central European Literature Award. As writer in residence, Kateryna has had the opportunity to work on several new projects, including her first novel for young adults and a screenplay. And both projects draw on her experience fleeing the war. During her residency, Kateryna hosted several free virtual writing workshops, and the themes of her workshops was inspiration, a topic she is asked about frequently by writers. She also provided virtual one-on-one writing consultations, which has given her the opportunity to mentor writers from McMaster and from Hamilton, as well as writers from Ukrainian communities. On behalf of McMaster University Library and our partners, thank you, Kateryna, for your contributions as the International Writer in Residence. I would now like to invite Kateryna to share readings of her work.
Thank you very much. Thank you for such a warm introduction. And thank you all for your warm words and for creating this possibility, this opportunity for me when me and my family, we were super fragile. And I remember the first contact, the first email I got from Susie O'Brien, who is not here with us, but probably will watch us in record, offering me to come to Hamilton, to show up there physically, to be safe, and offering me not only the position of writer in residence, but a place to stay and a safe community for me and my daughter and my mother, which was precious, which was so important back then. I was afraid, however, to go that far when the full-scale invasion started, because the war, it lasts already for 8 years, but only the part of our country was involved. And since February 24th, 2022, the whole country is under the fire. So my daughter was only 1.5 years old. And I did not feel confident to go so far overseas to, even though I would love to be physically present, but the thing you offered me, this opportunity of being online writer in residence, is a great sign of support, not only because of you included me in your community, and I get to know a lot of wonderful writers and a lot of wonderful people from Toronto, from McMaster's community, from Hamilton community, and among Hamilton Public Library visitors, but also because the possibility of being able to do your normal work, because normally I do write and I teach creative writing, and I also do used to do consulting to my students. So despite of the situation, you gave me a possibility to be still doing what I'm used to do, and what is my calling, I believe. And that was so important in terms of realizing that the world is not falling apart behind you, because when you have to flee home, when you have to leave everything behind, when all your friends and all your close people are either now at the line of war, fighting, dying, being wounded, or living now in different countries, in different time zones, when you become during one night the only adult person, like financially or administratively or in whatsoever sense responsible for the whole your family, or it turned out to be that I'm the adult here, I'm the one to take care of everyone, it's very important to have something to hold on to, like your job, like your calling, like your writing. So I was able to finish the book, the novel you mentioned for young adults, which is called Mom, Do You Remember? I was able to finish it. And I had a possibility to meet you all, to be a part of McMaster's community. And I've met more than 20 people during this individual consulting, not mentioning the wonderful attendance of the workshops on inspiration. For some of those people found me on social media and signed up and found my books and are asking me questions and supporting some fundraising campaigns that I've been providing for Ukrainian children or for Ukrainian wounded people. For every Ukrainian is now involved in something to help the situation in our country. Even if we are living in exile, even if we are abroad now, staying physically safe, we are still fighting in our own way. Of course, this is nothing like fighting at the battlefield, but still we're doing at least something. So those people who attended those free workshops, random Canadians, people who would never probably know me, because the attendance of Hamilton Public Library, the students of McMaster's, they became also kind of a part of my supportive community, which is very important. And of course, I met wonderful people during the individual consulting. I gonna read something and then gonna tell a bit about that experience. And also even I will be happy to introduce you to of people who were so generous to share their writing with me and to ask for my advice, and whose writing I loved. But yes, well, you see, I don't even have any kind of speech prepared, which of course causes a lot of grammar mistakes. But on the other hand, it shows how comfortable I am being here with you, online apparently, but I know we're gonna meet one day when the situation is better. I do hope we're gonna meet in person in peaceful Ukraine, where we used to organize a lot of writers and translation and workshops and international book and poetry and literature festivals. And I know we're gonna do this again. So I will be able now to bring you all to show us our beautiful country and to show you that your support was not in vain. I have chosen only 3 poems to read tonight. I'm gonna read in Ukrainian, and I'm gonna do the trick. I'm gonna share the part of my screen so you will see the translation. I will ask Kathleen to let me know if something is wrong with the translation, so people don't see, let's say, the translation, something is wrong with the transmission, so people are not able to see what is going on. And I have picked the poetry written after February 24th of 2022, or written shortly after April of 2014, when the war actually had started. You see, a lot of years ago, we were living close to it. And not only, I mean, there is no one to blame, because not only international community was closing their eyes to the fact that Russia is killing us and destroying our country, but we started living next to it and consider this some kind of local conflict, which it wasn't, of course. And this is the very expensive, I can say, not as a metaphor or some slang thing, but literally bloody expensive lesson to react faster, to react to injustice and to crime immediately. But well, we are paying our price now, and I'm sure we're gonna protect our sovereignty and our land, especially with this kind of support we have. So thank you very much again for that. And yes, I'm gonna read some things about this war, which probably not the best thing to listen to in the middle of the working day in Canada, or in the middle of the evening somewhere in Ukraine or in London, but this is something which is very important for me to share. So now I'm gonna figure out screen sharing. Okay, it's gonna work now. Great. And they're gonna read in Ukrainian, so you get the sound of our language. Не питай мене, як я. Спитай мене щось просте. Подивися, моє волосся тепер так швидко росте, ніби має окрему, цілком конкретну мету. Коли все це скінчиться, я ним тебе оплету. Не кажи мені, як ти. Щось легше скажи мені. Адже кожен, навіть найменший камінь у цій війні обернувся на зброю, щоб боронити своє. Не кажи мені, як це, бо ж це все, що у тебе є. Коли дзвін б'є на сполох, ударна хвиля під дих, навіть мертві з землі цієї встають за своїх живих, і як вони виють тоскно голосами нічних сирен, не кажи мені, бо для такого навіть немає імен. Бо для такого немає ні часу, ні місця, ані вимірів, ані сфер. Але все це все одно відбувається просто тут і тепер, серед затишних ринків, шкільних дворів, приміських забудов. І все, що після такого може зцілити, то хіба любов. Любов зможе стулити докупи розчахнуті рани краї. Зможе живити собою потужні ріки та ручаї, зможе змити наругу, оплакати щедро кожну пролиту кров. Але поки це все не скінчиться, не кажи мені про любов. Краще, допоки зблизькі, нічні, змінює передранкова синь, взагалі нічого не кажи мені. Відпочинь. Now I'm gonna switch to another translation and apologize for my daughter and my screaming, my mother screaming behind the wall. This is something I can do nothing to. So the other two poems I'm gonna read also are translated. This translation is made by Verlana Tkach and Wanda Phipps, both great writers and great translators from United States, and the other translations, two of them will be made by Leo Hlitsuk, the translator from Ukraine, who passed away 2 years ago, unfortunately, but let me share the other translation. Не забудь також сказати про тих, хто тобі ні в чому не дорогий, хто тебе не любив або не беріг, хто на берег не допоміг зійти. І також попроси за таких, які називаються пристрасно вороги. І, звичайно, за тих, котрі злі, слабкі, не такі, як хочеться, не як ти. Теж обов'язково за тих скажи, хто у полі, в морі, в саду, в кіно, хто упав, підстрибнув, присів, лежить, хто в садок дитячий вперше йде, хто горить у пеклі, хто пік пиріг, хто купив костюм, хто розбив вікно, хто сказав, що зробить, але не зміг, хто не знав куди чи не бачив де. Краще називай їх на імена, щоб іменам не згубити лік. Тут що дотепер все одна і одна, і того, хто нам ремонтує дах, хто щодня паркується як на слід, Хто вкладається спати на правий бік, хто збиває взимку зі сходів лід, хто зневажив страх, хто поліг в боях. Над тобою вогник горить, нічний, тихо у кімнаті і на дворі. Ти тепер прозорий, легкий, нічий, менший від комах, тонший від роси. Вирушай в потік, проростай горіх, долети до того, хто на горі. Не забудь, не схиб, розкажи про всіх і для всіх однаково попроси. And the last poem I'm going to read tonight is dedicated to the people, how do we call them in Ukraine? It's Heavenly 100. So those are 120 people being killed violently by, back that time, corrupted government of Ukraine during the peaceful protests in Ukraine in the beginning of 2014, which actually was the start of all the following events with Russia occupation of the Crimea Peninsula, and which actually led to the war now. So this poem is dedicated to the people of Heaven 100. Unfortunately, there are way more hundreds people to join them now, and we are still counting, still paying this price. Пам'яті Небесної Сотні. Коли помираєш, слід пам'ятати про те, що, звісно, перемагає завжди добро, але це не одразу помітно. Що дерева срібні та ріки солодкі, хоч десь та є. І що тільки те, що ти віддав, назавжди твоє, навіть якщо це усе в тобі світло. Що любити не боляче і не страшно, навіть тоді, коли від любові тебе охоплює страх і біль, що його й не побороти. І в жодному разі не слід уявляти, як будуть після тебе інші жити чи помирати, так і не взнавши, хто ти. Тож, коли очікувано чи ні, настає та мить в місті, де, очевидно, забагато всього горить, в тій країні, котра забагато від тебе хоче, краще швидко перелічити імена дорогих і тих, хто з любов'ю обережно йтиме тепер по слідах твоїх, і не закривати очі. Вічна пам'ять, тонке проміння, що пливе через всі часи. Дорогоцінні ріки, голубі голоси, відблиски золоті у чужих зіницях. Тож, коли помираєш, слід проспівати собі мерщій. Перетікає життя в життя, як моря в дощі. І тому воно не скінчиться. Thank you. That was everything I wanted to share from my writing. But still, again, I've met more than 20 people from McMaster's University, Hamilton community, Hamilton public library funds attendance or whatsoever, and also people from Toronto, just from reading and following the McMaster's news community, and even some people from Ukrainian speaking, from newcomers from Toronto, from Ukrainian refugees, who also are trying to put their ideas, their experiences, their pains, their emotions in words and needed to be consulted. So before I introduce to people who are here, who made this favor for me to be present here and agreed to share their writing, that I was happy to work with, and you're gonna hear them reading and see them. I want to tell you briefly about two more writers whom I worked with. There were people among those 20 whom I met only once, and we worked on something. I answered some questions, I gave some recommendations. But there were also people whom we worked a couple of times with. So I got to read the whole book or the whole work, and we worked as a team on improving or on developing or on researching. That was very cool. This is always a great experience. So two of them were people. I want really to mention their names to you and to tell you briefly, if you don't mind, about their projects, because they were not able to be here today. But I would love you to follow up and to find the books when the books are published, because both of them are working on something very important and very bright and very, very nice. So those going to be great books. I believe I've read them and I actually know that. So the first one is Denise Davy, whom you probably know, for she's been a reporter for years. She worked in Toronto and in Hamilton. And she's been a reporter and in interviewing, covering very interesting and touching and important cases. But the book she had written, which working title was Bright Sunny Day, but this probably is something to be changed. The very intimate, very important and very well-written book she came up with, and I was happy to work with her on, is about something else, about her personal experience. He was a single mother of an only child, a beautiful boy, warm, healthy, talented, amazing. And when this boy was 18 years old, he died at the accident. So her book is all about that experience, how to overcome the grief, how to survive it step by step and day by day. She is sharing in a very readable, very profound and very fair and intimate way the most dark and the most bright aspects of getting into the maximum of grief, of disbelieving in this world, into the maximum being pressed down to the ground by the weight of this loss. This is a huge loss. This is something people say one can't probably overcome. One probably can't, but what I loved about this book, that she is sharing the view that I have towards everything what is going on in the world, which I think is that whatever you have experienced, whatever you have done, whatever had happened to you, until you are alive, just alive, that's as simple as that, you still can be happy again. So the book of Denise Davy is difficult to read in terms of she's sharing years of being in a deep grief, mourning her dead son, don't believe in this had happened, don't believe in she's ever getting better, getting to the wrong counselors and wrong psychotherapists, feeling worse than it was before, going up and down, exhausting all the resource of help of her friends and her surrounding. And yet it's the story of being happy again, living again, seeing the sun again in memory of your beloved child who spent those beautiful years with you and who's not here anymore. In name of his friends who are still remembering him and celebrating his life that had happened next to them with her, in memory of other people who had the same experience and who are trying to overcome this huge tragedy, in name of new children she adopted and gave them a beautiful life, finding at her late 40s an energy and a power and the resource to become a mother again. This is a great book. I'm not reading excerpts from the books I'm going to mention because it's the author to do this, but I wanted to share this one. And the other one is very different one. It's rather adventurous novel, we would say, mixture of an adventurous novel and family saga. And not everybody would even recognize and know that this is actually a personal family story. The story of a tailor, of a young Polish girl that immigrated to London some years ago after the Second World War, married the Cameroonian guy, went to Cameroon with him, which was a big laugh, but also a big failure in terms of financial matters and whatsoever other matters. So having 5 children, 5 daughters, she decides to move with them to Canada. The name of the book gonna be, I forgot the name of the street, shame on me, The Empress of Hudson Street. So the Empress of Hudson Street, the mother, single mother with the 5 children, is moving to Canada from Yaoundé and making her life there and the life of her children from the point zero. 5 little children, 1 woman who can sew, who can make curtains or clothing, and the whole new life in Canada, a new country ahead of them. The name of the author is Beatrice Ekwa Ekoko, or probably as an author she would be just Beatrice Ekoko. And the story is just great, believe me. So whenever you can buy the book called The Empress of Hudson Street, telling the story of a woman who's 7 clothes and curtains in early 70s, moving from Cameroon to Canada with 5 little children, pay attention to this. And also one of the most profound experiences I got during this consulting was consulting, what do you call this is correctly? Work with other writers. It's just a pleasure being, for the short moment, a part of the team of another person to share the story and the experience. It was the poetry, of course. The poetry is a very special thing for me. I'm a poet myself, and I value poetry highly as an instrument of transferring the experience, especially when it comes to experience that I can relate to. For the poetry we got to listen to is written by, how it's correctly to call Canadian with an Ukrainian origin, or Canadian born Ukrainian, or Ukrainian Canadian Ukrainian Canadian. Halina Koba, who is who appeared to be a bright poet and who wrote a beautiful poem on a very important matter, on a very important event of Ukrainian history, which is actually a tragedy of a world scale, and which was covered and hidden for a long time. This is the starvation, the artificial famine that had happened in 1932, 1934, let's say, the years of it. So millions of people were killed by creating this artificial famine on a huge territory of Ukraine. Check it out in case you don't know. Ukraine is a big country, but it's the biggest one in Europe, let's say. And almost everything was taken out from there by Soviet government, and either just kept protected to get rotten, but not given to people. So the people would literally eat their dead parents and eat their dogs and die because they had nothing to eat. And that was hidden for a very long time. It was never, until the very recent time, and until the last decades, it was never recognized. So I would say that writing on it and sharing this kind of experience, I mean, how would it reach you if you not only was a part of it, but you were born in Canada? So this is a beautiful, very emotional answer. How does it touch you, and how do you still feel it? So I'm happy to welcome here Halina Koba, who shared her writing with me, and I would love her to introduce her poem and herself and to read this poem to us.
Okay, thank you very much, Kateryna. I really enjoyed your poetry. I want to say thank you. You helped me in ways you don't know. There was some problem areas that you highlighted, and of course you gave me a lot of encouragement. So dziękuję dużo. That means thank you very much. Okay. I would like to say I retained some Ukrainian words in the English poem just because I wanted to, and it's part of Canada as well. The words that I retained, I should tell you what they are. One is kucha, which is a grain dish eaten on the Holy Christmas Eve. The other words, there is one rouladen, which is similar to English. Pascha, I think people know now, it's the Easter bread. Forgive me, it's rather long. I would like to say that I write very short poetry, and I wrote this first verse in August, and it grew. And my intentions changed. I wanted to retain what my family had experienced in Europe and Canada. It is called Nourishment. Mama would fill a plate or bowl with food at the stove and bring it to each of 5 children and our tato. The servings were composed with love. She knew the likes, dislikes, and amounts for everyone. Somehow she remembered. One potato a lot, will eat liver, will not. Stuffed chicken, some liked light, others dark meat. Cabbage rolls and vareniki were hot. Our parents came from Ukraine. Due to unbelievably warped politics and war, they nearly died of starvation more than once. They remembered, they never forgot. Borscht, healthy soups made with just picked ingredients, breaded pork chops and tasty rouladen, accompanied by mouth-watering scents. Born in 1924, Mama lived with her parents and sister in the small town of Poninka. Holodomor, death by hunger, was imposed by Stalin in the early 1930s. Millions died. During the artificial famine, it was lucky if there was a heel of bread in their home. Once, even that was stolen. Deluxe meatloaf made from freshly ground beef and pork, baked with hard-boiled eggs in the center, always served with French bread, a daily perk. Mama was an exceptional student, and her mama sent her to the Polytechnical Institute in Berdichev. At 14, on scholarship, she was the youngest student ever admitted. In 1939, while she was still in school, World War II started. By her 3rd year, things were becoming more and more unstable. On a train from a practicum in another city, she decided to get off at Kiev to join her mother and sister. When the Nazi occupation started, part of the tyranny was rounding up forced labor, including Mama. Afraid and bewildered, she was transported by train in a cattle car to Germany and made to work in several places. The first was a hotel in a Bavarian resort town, where part of her many duties was working in the kitchen. Petite but tough, quick and efficient, Mama absorbed techniques, tricks, and recipes. Homemade pickles, relishes, jams, and sauerkraut gave an extra special fillip and tang to feasts, which we enjoyed without a doubt. A little bit of this, a lot of that. Tato, born in 1911 in the farming village of Komorivka, was from a larger family. Educated to be an engineer, he eventually became the head of the electrical department in the city of Lviv. The Germans arrested him on a trumped-up charge, jailed him, and then sent him to 2 concentration camps, Auschwitz and later Dachau. Mama put large quantities of everything on his plate. Luscious fruit pies with incredible butter crust. Most of us wanted a double portion. Apple strudel donuts were also musts. After the Americans marched into Europe in 1945, the horrible war ended. Our parents met in a refugee camp in Germany and had 2 sons. They waited 6 years to be admitted into a free world country and crossed the ocean to Canada and another culture in 1951. During the next 5 years, they had 3 more children, all girls. To budget, they grew a garden with fruit trees and bushes in the backyards of their 3 successive homes. Along with the gardens, they raised their children, with only Ukrainian spoken at home. Fortunately, we also learned Ukrainian dancing, colorful folk songs, and how to cook. We were strongly encouraged to go to university and attain various degrees. Christmas, Easter were marked twice in different ways, Ukrainian as well as Canadian. Kutya and Pascha received highest praise. Mama poured her heart, soul, and every other part of her being into her children, and later her grandchildren. She balanced a deep understanding affection with discipline when it was deserved. Gentle seasonings and herbs. Let's not forget dill. Lots of onion and garlic for flavor. All dispensed with assured freestyle skill. On our way home from school, rounding the bend, we'd catch the smells. My friends would ask, "Gee, what's your mother making today? We're jealous." Little did they know what lay behind her divine cuisine. We remember, we can never forget. Oh, yay! That was such a hard poem to write.
It was a great poem to write, though. Halina, thank you very much.
But you see the changes?
Yes, and they are good.
I smoothed it out.
You did it great. You did it great.
Thank you.
I have to apologize if you guys did not have lunch yet and had to listen to this. It is probably complicated.
Oh yes.
Thank you very much.
Cooking.
You did a great job, and I do love this poem. And all the changes were right. Дякую дуже, Halina. And now we switch to something else, to the life of children, to the life where there are a lot of imagination, a lot of fun, a lot of playing, a lot of fantasizing, yet a lot of trauma. And when you are small, you experience less and you understand less, but you have to deal with the very important things. And you do not even have a language to tell about them. So each time you have to invent the language and invent your own way to deal with this life when you are little. And the beautiful writing of Magdalena Avni, it's a book for children, but you probably know that all the books for children are never only for children, but also for parents, for those people who read together with them. So I would like to introduce Magdalena Avni, who written a beautiful book on the life of Mickey and the small Obi. We're gonna figure out who is Obi, or she gonna probably tell us. And she gonna read as well one of the chapters of her beautiful book. Magda, welcome.
Thank you so much, Kateryna, for that wonderful introduction. That is so true what you say. I feel so honored to be here today and share this platform with you all. I mean, the poetry has just been so inspiring, and wow, like I'm so moved. I moved to tears really. So I'm just really trying to keep my emotions in to get to this point where I could read for you. So thank you very much for inviting me to be here. And very much, I want to thank you, Kateryna, for your wonderful words of encouragement, your advice, your excellent tips that you sent my way to improve this work, which I'm hoping to take to a new place in the near future. So thank you, like from the bottom of my heart. I really appreciate it, especially considering everything you've gone through in this last 2 years with your family. I mean, I just simply cannot imagine. And knowing you have a young daughter, it really speaks to my own heart as a mother, knowing what children are going through at this time, which I think why writing for children for me right now is also very cathartic. It's just a way to bring some words to lives that are going through things that they can't always express themselves. So thank you again for having me. I will be reading from what's considered an early middle grade chapter book. And I'll be reading a chapter from my book called Monster Heart. In short, it is a book about the reality of changing family dynamics. It's about the value of friendship that is based on honesty and loyalty, which it introduces a character named Mickey, and yes, her little friend named Obi, who is a monster. He doesn't quite show up in this chapter, but he does show up very frequently in the entirety of the book. And above all, this is a book about what we all have. It's this superpower, and our superpower is our imaginations. And sometimes if we can nurture that in children, we can draw on our imaginations in even the most traumatic of times. So that is really the crux of the book, in short. And I'll be reading from chapter 3. It's a scene where the main character is playing way back in the field of their elementary school with her best friend, Amir. They are building something from their imaginations out of leaves and sticks. And she has just seen something a little unusual hiding under the leaves, and it just kind of takes off from there. Chapter 3. It was right here. I pick up a stick and dig around in the leaves where I thought I saw the tiny creature. Amir isn't helping. Sometimes he gets lost in his thoughts, but I don't mind. It's part of who he is. He also has some trouble finishing his work in class, and I try to help him when I have a chance. Other kids make fun of him and say he's dumb, but it's totally not true. He's actually super smart. He can build stuff like no one I've ever seen, and that's why we stick together, like gum on a shoe. If I dream it, he'll build it. So, do you think your dad could get me a t-shirt like the one you have? I have money. I've been saving up, he asks. Oh no. I don't want to tell Amir the truth. It's been 17 days since Dad left. I remember exactly because it wasn't long after we got home from trick-or-treating on Halloween night. My parents started arguing in the living room when they thought I was asleep. But there was no way I could sleep. I was up eating a Mars bar I'd snuck into bed, still wearing my awesome She-Ra Princess of Power costume, because I was way too tired to take it off and brush my teeth. I was daydreaming about how it'd be so cool to have She-Ra as a big sister, and we could be brave and save the world together. But then I heard them fighting. And even though they tried to be quiet about it, our small apartment couldn't hide that many loud words or a picture-shaking door slam. That was Dad leaving. I bet the neighbors heard him. Mom cried after he left, but quietly. I know she didn't want me to know. The thing is, if I tell Amir the truth, that means talking about what happened between my parents. And talking about what happened makes me worried. And I'm trying super hard to forget about being worried today. So I make something up. It's easier. He went on a really long trip. I don't think he can get you a t-shirt, sorry. Amir's shuffling leaves around between his feet and totally not concentrating on what he's supposed to be doing. Building Mega. Oh, that's okay. I heard that he left. Where'd he go? And he's asking too many questions. I'm not sure. Wait, who told you about that? I know I didn't tell anyone. My mom. She said you talked to your mom, he says while tossing a stick towards the blacktop in the distance. Oh, that's strange. I didn't know they knew each other. Maybe Amir's mom knows where he went. What else did your mom say, I ask? I'm hoping he can tell me more, something that might give me an idea of where Dad went or why. Not much. She said it was sad. Oh, yeah, I guess. Suddenly, a cold breeze sends chills down my arms, and my eyes start to get watery. Ring the bell, yes. I grab my coat off the ground and run as fast as I can away from Amir. I tear through 6 whole walls of Mega, and leaves fly all over the place. I don't even care. I hear Amir yelling something behind me, but I'm too far ahead, and the sound of his voice is drowned out by screaming laughter and the buzzing of kids all around. I run faster and faster and let the cold wind push against my face and chest and rip through my hair. I feel like I could lift into the sky like a jet plane and escape from everything. Mom, Dad, Amir, the whole world, and all the messed up, confusing things in it. I finally catch up to Theo, who's waiting at the end of Mrs. Song's grade 3 lineup to go inside. I'm breathing in and out really hard. My lungs ache and I hear my heart thudding like a drum between my ears. The whole schoolyard seems blurry and kind of unreal, like a dream. I just want to go inside. Something in my stomach feels weird. I'm probably just hungry. Thank you. Thank you so much.
It's a heartbreaking part of an introduction. So we figure out what happened and the protagonists haven't yet, but thank you very much. It's a beautiful writing, and please keep working on the book and publish it.
Thank you, Kateryna. I appreciate your kind words.
I believe everybody would agree.
Well, thank you so much, Kateryna, Helena, and Magdalene for sharing your writing with us. I am noticing the time, so probably not a lot of time for questions, but maybe we can just sneak in one. Kateryna, is there something that you're currently working on, or what's next for you now that the residency is concluding?
I finished the book very recently, like a month ago, the novel for young adults, but it's rather the novel for everyone. And I'm working now on the film script. I got the request from Ukrainian producer, but she's a member of American Film Academy, Alexandra Kostina. So she wants to enlighten one very special aspect of the war happening in Ukraine now, which is the life of babies being born during this time. So we are working on the script about that.
Very interesting. Okay, hold on. I do see one question that did come in the chat, so we'll slip one more in. It says, hello from London, UK, and thank you to all of you. Kateryna, you are part of a long tradition of exiled writers. How do you perceive your relationship to that tradition?
I still hope that's not gonna last. I still hope I'm gonna be Ukrainian writer from Ukraine, living in Ukraine and writing in Ukraine. I do understand there were reasons for people to leave, because it's not the first time we have problem with Russia, not the second time. If you dig into the background, you would see the good 400 years when we were oppressed by them in this or that way. And I do hope this time we will manage to end this, and all Ukrainians, writers, or whoever else will be finally able to live peacefully and safely in Ukraine. So that is how I think about it now. I still do believe I'm not gonna become a part of this tradition, and I'm gonna go home.
We hope so. Okay, well, thank you so much. I did want to have a quick thank you to Colin from the Faculty of Humanities for running our tech support behind the scenes today. And just for a few closing words, I'll pass it back over to Vivian Lewis.
So, thank you, Caitlin. And thank you to everyone who joined us today to celebrate Kateryna. A special thank you, of course, to Kateryna for her work throughout the past 6 months. You have truly made an impact on the writing community here in Hamilton. I would also like to recognize writers Helena and Magdalene for sharing their works with us today. The International Writer in Residence Initiative would not have been possible without the leadership of Daniel Coleman and Susie O'Brien, with the financial support from McMaster's Department of English and Cultural Studies, the Faculty of Humanities, the Office of the Provost, Hamilton Public Library, and McMaster University Library. So thank you again to Kateryna. Our thoughts continue to be with you and your family and to the people of the Ukraine. Also, thank you to our audience here in Canada and around the world.
Thank you very much. Thank you for all your support. Thank you for your time, your attention, your work, Helena and Magda, and all the other people I've met who were not able for this or that reason to be with us as readers today. And of course, thank you all for being with us. I mean, Ukrainians. Please do stand up for us and keep up with our fight, our war. For this is something we have to end finally. Thank you very much for all your support.